This is the #1 showbiz podcast. It's Talk for Two. Here's your host, Matt Bailey.
Merry Christmas, Gary. And of course, Merry Christmas to all you listeners, as well as our season sponsors, Axtel Expressions and the Tangent Bound Network. Welcome. Welcome. It is Christmas Eve, and welcome to what I hope is the start of a holiday tradition around here, surprising you with something right before the Christmas holiday. I love the season. I love giving gifts, and so this is perfect. The show is my gift to you, and so if that's true, the gift to me is the gentleman we're talking to today. You know Clarence Gilyard as James Trevette on Walker, Texas Ranger, and I grew up watching him play Conrad McMasters on reruns of Matlock that a local affiliate would air. I mentioned that actually at the top of the interview. Clarence is with us today to talk about the upcoming national tour of Driving Miss Daisy, produced by the Neil Simon Festival, which kicks off at Pope Joy Hall in Albuquerque, New Mexico on January 17th. Visit simonfest.org for tickets. And Gilyard's involvement in the Neil Simon Festival is just one of the many topics we cover with him. From reuniting with his Walker, Texas Ranger co-star Sheree J. Wilson, to his remarkable career, to his favorite Christmas traditions, Clarence covers it all. Here now to tell us why Driving Miss Daisy is just as important a piece of theater as it was when it was written, our interview with Clarence Gilyard. Clarence Gilyard, thank you so much for being here with us today on our Christmas special on Talk for Two. Wanted to get you in right before the holidays. Merry Christmas, Clarence. This is going to be fun.
Merry Christmas to you, Matt.
Oh, this is great. I have to say, I'm 21 years old, but growing up, I had a lot of influences on the television. And I remember in middle and high school, I would have to be home before 4 p.m., to watch on our local channel that had all the syndicated shows, to make sure that I was in front of the television to watch Matlock. So I have
Matlock. Wow.
Yes, and of course Walker, Texas Ranger, and everything else. So you're talking to a fan here, and but more than that, I want to begin at the beginning. And who gave you your start in acting?
Ivan Spiegel gave me my professional start in acting. He was a producer of the Burbage Theater in the Century City Playhouse on Pico Boulevard, across the way from Paramount Studios.
Wow.
And, Dupree Dance Studio, because I went on an audition for a children's show that was being produced for Hollywood professionals' children on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yes.
And I had no professional experience, but I was waiting tables while I was going to Long Beach State. So I drove from Long Beach to Hollywood with some other wannabes, dreamers, to this audition. And I got the part. They said, "Hey, do you want to go to this audition?" I said, "Yeah, I want to go." And the play was Aesop's Fables.
Yes.
And it was a Saturday and Sunday morning and afternoon children's show that the theater made tons of money off of, because it was right in the heart of Hollywood. And all of the young families brought their kids, grandparents, and the studio execs brought their kids there for birthday parties and to see this show. But the thing about the theater was that it had the longest running play in Hollywood, Bleacher Bum, in the evening. And that was a play that came from the Organic Theater in Chicago. Joe Matagna was one of the actors, producers that created the show. They brought it out from Chicago as a vehicle for all of them to be able to work in theater and to break into television and film. And that was the adult play in the evening that was being produced at the Burbage Theater, Century City Playhouse. And so I would come in when I didn't have to work at the restaurant, and I would do the children's show, a couple of shows a day. I would go across the street to Dupree's dance studio to take my ballet and jazz. And then on Saturdays and maybe Fridays, if I didn't have to work, I would come in and watch the professional show. And in about 2 years, the character of the cheerleader in that comedy left the show, and I auditioned for it, and I got into it.
Wow!
So that's how I broke into the biz, as it were.
Yes.
And it was a very, 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 very popular show.
Yes.
Populated by a lot of adults and quirky people, and so I got a lot of attention from casting directors.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you remember after that your first on-camera role, whether it was
Yes, I do.
film or
yes,
television?
I do.
What was it?
It was Different Strokes.
Oh, yes. Yes. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, my agent, I finally signed with an agent that believed in me.
Yeah.
And so we had to figure out how to get a union card. And so Diane, who is still my agent, she was very, very connected in Hollywood and finally got me a look-see over there. And I went in, and lo and behold, I got the one line.
Yes.
And but it was a 3-camera show, so you had to work all week. And even though you had one line, you had to be there the whole day through rehearsals and fittings and read-throughs, and then you shot on Friday. You shot twice. You shot the show twice. And the thing that I remember about that, well, 2 things I remember about that show. One was that I had a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they wanted me to do the show, but I had no comedic timing at all. And so Conrad Bain was the male star of that show.
Yes.
And after about 3 days of struggling to make one line work, he came over surreptitiously and under his breath, he said, "Why don't you try saying it like this?" And I got a laugh. And after a week of sweating and hanging around and watching how it was done. And the next part of that story is that I remember leaving after the final taping on Friday night and driving back to Long Beach. And I was so despondent because I just thought I'll never work again. I'll never do another show again. And lo and behold, on Monday afternoon, my agent called and said, they would like you to come back and do the next episode and play the same character.
Wow.
So I had a 2-week run.
That's great.
As a recurring character. That was my first television series.
That's great. And my television chronology is mixing up in my head. Which came of the 2 big shows that you're known for, Walker and Matlock? Which came first? Was it Matlock or was it Walker?
It was Matlock. Wow. It was Matlock. Okay. I had graduated. I had gone back to university to get my degree because I had stopped doing television.
Yes.
After I did a television series with Jim Carrey called The Duck Factory.
Of course, yes.
And had a traumatic experience trying to make that television series go.
Yeah, you can't find anything about it. I was looking it up, and it's just kind of like a footnote.
No, you can find it. You
really?
can find it.
Yeah.
You can buy the series. And it's quite funny. It just it was a political situation between Alan Burns and the execs at NBC. They were just sort of having a testosterone competition, and so they just as soon as it was done, they decided to go with Night Court in the time slot instead of the Duck Factory. Anyway, yeah, but that wasn't what my issue was. My issue once again was trying to learn, how to be funny every week. And so after that show was canceled, I stopped doing television and I started studying very, very fiercely and got real focused on working with an offshoot of the Actors Studio
Yes.
in Los Angeles called The Loft Studio with Peggy Fury and Bill Traylor.
Wow, that's cool.
And
That's funny. I'm going to interject here. I don't want to interrupt you. That's funny because I now go to Pace University, which, as you know, is the current home to the Actors Studio. So that's
exactly.
very cool. Wow.
Yeah, Peggy and Bill were proteges of Lee and had moved to Hollywood because Peggy was quite talented. She wanted to do film, and so they had a big house in Bel Air, and I would go there after almost getting fired off that television series. I would go to their house on Sunday afternoons with my script and have dinner and maybe watch football and work on my script with them, and then I would drive to the studio on Monday mornings, and that saved my career. But it was really, really touch and go there for a while.
And so Matlock, I like I said, I loved watching that growing up. How fun was it shooting that show? I know that's not a specific question at all, but it looks like you all just really enjoyed your time together.
Oh yeah. It was Andy Griffith.
Of course, yes.
I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine being Andy Griffith's protege after growing up watching the Andy Griffith show?
I can't. I can only. I'm trying to think of something I could equate that to, but really,
no, it was just ridiculously and educational too because he was very funny. Mm-hmm. Don was very funny, and so I Andy. If you watch the show, you'll realize that Andy became, in a sense, the funny person on the show, and I became the characterization that he had juxtaposed with Don Knotts.
Yes.
And so our comedy was me learning how to, let him be funny, mm-hmm. but feed him the right lines and not step on his humor and be young and physical and do some daring things.
Yeah.
What happened was the show, after 3 years for me, NBC canceled it, but ABC picked it up. Mm-hmm. And then we moved the show to North Carolina to be closer to its home.
Yeah.
So I had to move out there. Mm. And so I lived out there for a year, and then I decided to leave the show and produce my own show. I was getting a lot of attention. And just before I really signed the contract on that show, Chuck came on. It came to my attention that Chuck had a 13 on the air deal to do this television series about Texas Rangers. And Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, that kind of franchise was appealing.
Yeah.
And so I let Chuck know very fast that I really was the only person in Hollywood that could really team up with him to do that show.
Yeah.
I felt very strongly that there really was anybody, because I was rodeoing at the time, as a matter of fact.
Really?
So the idea of being, mm-hmm. I was on a pro celebrity circuit.
Yeah.
So I couldn't think of anybody else who was in that bracket that really could do that, be that physical and do all those variety of physical activities. And I played college football, so it sort of fit the character who was a professional football player before he became a Texas Ranger.
Yeah, that really is. It's really cool. And you opened it for me to ask two questions in succession. I'll start with the first. You said that Andy became your mentor, and that was incredible because of watching the Andy Griffith show. What's one thing that you can remember sticks in your mind that he taught you about acting? Anything that he said or even demonstrated?
I remember one time we were shooting a sort of send-up of the Norman Bates story. What is it?
Psycho?
Yeah, we were doing a send-up of Psycho for a Halloween episode. And I remember there was a funny bit that had to do with being stranded out in the middle of the street with him, and he was trying to teach me about comic timing, and he used to talk about Jack Benny, about doing a Jack Benny take and things like that. But I remember, and we were coming up to, I mean, he might have even sort of rewrote the gag, but I'll always remember him talking to me about being a straight man and how you either have to have a point of view or not have a point of view, and it depended upon the subject matter that the comedy team was working. And so I remember him saying, okay, now on this occasion, under these circumstances, in this place, you don't have a point of view at this juncture in the repartee. And I remember, and I've carried sort of that kind of lesson into my work and into my directing work too.
Wow. Yes. Let's talk about that. What do you direct? What was your first project directing?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I almost went to graduate school as a director.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, that was my first offer for my graduate degree, but I turned it down because too selfish. I liked it. I only direct things that I'm not the type for, but I really, really, really like the character.
Yeah.
For example, I'm getting ready to do a projection of the Pulitzer Prize-winning play that was on Broadway called Disgraced.
Yes.
About Islamophobia. Getting ready to do that out here. And so the first thing I directed professionally, because I directed in undergrad, and then, like I said, I turned down graduate work in directing to go to graduate school as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
I directed an episode of Walker, which put me in the DGA.
Yes.
But now I'm an associate director of a summer theater festival in Utah, the Neil Simon Festival. And so we work all summer on comedies,
mm-hmm.
Mostly Neil Simon, but then we sort of branch off and do that kind of theater in Utah, and which brings me to touring Driving Miss Daisy.
Yes, of course. We have to get to that.
Eventually.
Yes, of course. So it's interesting. What drew you to Driving Miss Daisy? What about that piece? Because you're also starring in it as well.
I'll tell you what happened. The founder of the Neil Simon Festival, Richard Bugg, was a guest star on a movie of the week, Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Because every year we would take a month and go someplace, sort of change things up. We would go on location, Colorado, New Mexico, you know.
Yeah.
And Utah even, Park City. So Rick was a guest star. And I've always been intrigued by, I wanted to go to graduate school to study classical theater training. So now and again, whenever we were on location, there invariably would be a professor who was taking some time away to do a guest spot. And Rick was a professor, graduate of BYU, and where did he go? He went to Denver. He went to Denver for his graduate degree. Anyway, so when I found out he was a professor, I just bugged him for, sat down and had meals with him and just chatted to him, because I always felt that I would like to go back to graduate school once, even when I was working professionally. Come to find myself in Las Vegas 10 years ago on faculty at the university.
Yep.
And it's only 2.5 hours from his university, and he was starting up a theater festival when I was still working professionally. Wanted me to come on the board. Didn't really have time for that, but now we're only 2.5 hours away, and he kept threatening to, have me come and guest in the summertime, and he wanted to find the right place. And eventually, he's offered me Driving Miss Daisy to play Hulk.
Yes.
In Driving Miss Daisy. And so I took my family up there for 3 months, and became a success, and it really did. People really responded to the production.
Yes. And was Sheree in it? Sheree was in it?
She was not. No. Because it's a commitment. It's a 3-month commitment.
Of course.
So I'll do a play, and then I'll direct a play in the summer. And my family gets to be in the mountains and go to soccer camp and swim camp and golf. And it's nice. It's nice. And now I'm an associate director, so trying to help run it. And it's a love. It's turned into a love.
It really is.
Next year we're going to do On Golden Pond, as a matter of fact.
I'm sorry?
Next year we're going to do On Golden Pond.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, my daughter's going to play my daughter.
Oh, that's going to be really, really cool. That's awesome.
It is.
That's awesome.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Now, now I should get back to this question here, and you say you fell in love with it. Is there anything that you want to talk about Hoke that really, because this is one of the most popular plays in the history of theater. Why is this play so enduring and endearing and has lasted for so long?
Well, it's a bit controversial,
Of course.
There are some people that don't like to see the African American man under those circumstances in the 60s, mm-hmm. still having to what would be a good word? Manipulate his way to get work. Meaningful work. Because that was the challenge. That is the challenge of playing Hope, is to tell the true story of hanging on to your dignity and integrity and manhood while you're having to manipulate your way into getting work, which is, servile work.
Yeah.
But the story, the story that's told chronicles the revelation mm-hmm. of what a dignified part of America, these men were.
Yes.
Drivers and gardeners and postmen and,
of course,
factory workers. And this is how the next generation got to go to college. And then the next generation got to go to graduate school,
mm-hmm.
because those people worked, even, they didn't have full high school education, but they were certainly bright and brilliant and made do for their families the best they could. And so Hope is a challenge because I was the next generation, and it's hard to walk in the shoes of your father and your grandfather, and especially in a theatrical dramedy, as it were, mm-hmm. and realize that you're going to have to suck it up because that's what African Americans had to do back then. Mm-hmm. And so I spent some time trying to embrace that mm-hmm. aspect of the character's journey.
I'm trying to find an appropriate way to word this. Do we shy away from the history because we don't like to talk about it? We get scared of it. Is that one of the reasons it's so controversial? Is because we think it's in the past collectively as a society. We think that stuff's in the past. We shouldn't talk about it.
I think the young generation now is dealing with issues and challenges that seem to preclude them, not realizing that those challenges are connected to race. Mm-hmm. And so it keeps rearing its head, and because it seems like, professional football players and basketball players are doing fine, that African Americans and Latino Americans are not marginalized. When in reality, there are many people in urban areas who do not have access to the American dream still.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a portion of society that could care less about lingering racism and glass ceilings and the like, and opportunities and numbers and recidivism in the penal system and poverty in the urban centers of the United States. These are still real issues.
Mm-hmm. So what is one thing, because I think it's important to go back and you have works like this and to produce them and kind of, put that out there for people to see. With your work with it, what do you think is one thing this generation of not just African Americans, but society as a whole that wants to advocate for all kinds of equality can learn from a piece like Driving Miss Daisy?
Well, it really resonates actually with all audiences. And we had a sold out audience at the Smith Center here in Las Vegas. Big, beautiful theater. Mm-hmm. And the students I think they were slack jawed because first of all, this is a flash. This is a Pulitzer Prize winning play, so the writing is fantastic.
It really is.
The storytelling is really clear and it's just special. So when I was just talking to James Earl Jones about 3 weeks ago about this play.
Oh wow!
And about acting technique and the like, and you have to be, which is the challenge. You have to go back to that time and really tell that story, and then allow that relationship and the two characters to particularly grow, mm-hmm. and then let the love story become what it's going to become. But you have to tell the story episodically, truthfully, mm-hmm. Truthfully, and that's and you can't surf over it. You have to embrace it. Yes. At the beginning of the play, this black man needs a job, and within the confines of that office, he is going to smile his way and joke his way into getting that job. Because if he doesn't, somebody else will. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't get that job, then he will not be able to feed his family. Now, what are you going to do? It's likened to Taming of the Shrew. Mm-hmm. And the point of view that revisionist theater pundits have about what Shakespeare wrote about the relationship between Kate and her husband, mm-hmm. her future husband.
Yeah.
But you've got to tell that story.
Yes.
Right? You if you want to revise it, you need to tell another story. But there's a reality to the evolution of understanding the equality of men and women, and you have to go through that mm-hmm. to get there.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the first scene I've been watching, it's interesting that you mentioned James, because I'd been watching the Angela Lansbury and James Earl Jones production on PBS, and
right.
You mentioned the evolution of the rights of all people, and in that first scene, Angela, the character Miss Daisy, talks about, her son comes in, and she talks about, last I checked, I still had rights in this house.
Right.
It's very interesting how it sets it up. So I'm excited for the audience to get to see it. I think it's the perfect tickets to your tour. Very limited tour throughout the first couple of months of next year. Is perfect for fans of theaters, fans of theater, fans of yours and Sheree, who also, of course, was on Walker, Texas Ranger. And I have two questions to close this out. One very last question we'll get to in a second, but this was the other one I was alluding to when we were talking about the two stars you've gotten to work with. I have to ask it because I've never had a chance to ask this of anybody who's worked with him. Is Chuck Norris, I'm trying to find a delicate way to put this. You know that my age group and my culture has kind of mythologized him and really turned him into this sort of Hulk-like character. Is he as much of a tough guy, sort of just... I'm trying to avoid cursing, but I think you know the word I'm searching around.
Yeah, he is. He's well, if you've ever been kicked by him,
yeah, really,
or punched by him, you have great respect for Grandmaster Chuck Norris.
Yes, is he as much of a Grandmaster as we have made him out?
Well, he's internationally renowned. I don't know if there is another one, but at the time that I was working with him, he was the only Anglo Grandmaster. Yes. In the United States.
Wow.
Yep. Yep. It was great. Yeah, he's an icon.
He really, really is. And the last thing, I want to focus on you and your family. I found out through trying to arrange this today, family obviously comes first with you. Any special Christmas traditions, as this is going to air on Christmas Eve? Any traditions for the holidays that you love?
Well, we're old school Catholic, and so we don't get our Christmas tree until Christmas Eve.
Wow.
So we celebrate the Advent season, and we decorate it that night. And then we actually observe 12 days of Christmas, so the kids don't open everything on Christmas Day.
Wow.
So we spread it out over 12 days and celebrate through Epiphany. And so we extend it, and we have meals and gift openings for 12 days.
Wonderful.
So it's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, I wish you, I guess, even while we're recording this, you're right in the middle of it. So I wish you a very Merry Christmas, and I wish you all the success in the world with the tour of Driving Miss Daisy. And I look forward, I don't think it's coming close, but I look forward to reading the reviews and hopefully seeing some clips online. I know it's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Terrific. When I get to New York, I'll try to look you up.
Yes, please do.
Now that I know you're there, and much success to you, and have a wonderful Christmas, Hanukkah, holiday season.
Yes, you too.
And a new year.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much, Clarence.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Clarence. Merry Christmas. Thank you for taking the time out of your 12 days of Christmas to sit down with me. What a remarkable tradition. I wasn't expecting that. That's a fantastic answer. Break a leg on the tour next year, sir. Now, that's it for us on this special holiday edition of Talk for Two. Visit talk4two.com for more, and reach out by emailing talkfortwocast@gmail.com. Use hashtag and @talkfortwo to find us on social media. The website is the only one with the numeral, and remember, after next year, when we come back, we will be with the FOR all over the place. So I'm very excited. And again, simonfest.org for your tickets for Driving Miss Daisy. Signing off for Talk for Two, I'm Matt Bailey, reminding everyone out there to keep talking for two, and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
You can hear more show business interviews with the stars at talkfor2.com, where you'll also find one-of-a-kind products to improve your own show. That's Talk, the number 4, TWO.com.